Now we can take that same sprinkler and put a part circle mechanism on it. And that makes it a 25. So the minute we go to the 25, that indicates part circle. In most cases, whenever you see a 5 on these series, it means it's a part circle head. And so what they've done is they've put a mechanism on it that when it goes to the part circle, all of a sudden it doesn't retract all the way when it gets that thrust by the water hitting the cup in the end of the arm. It can only return part of the way, and it hits a stop. And it forces the arm to keep hitting back real quickly, and it rattles back until it finally starts stroking forward again. Hits that stop, and it'll rattle back and then stroke forward again. Hits a stop, rattles back, and you've all seen that happen. You'll be real observant of it now that you are thinking about it. It'll be something you'll look at all the time. But that's the effect of the part circle and how the arm drive creates the reverse mechanism. What's the problem there? Well, the problem is the pressures have to be in the proper range to make that thing work right. Now, unfortunately, you get outside the pressure ranges and those things will get stuck in one position, and they'll just sit there and go and just flutter in one spot. If the pressure gets too high, that's what will happen. If the pressure gets too low, it won't have enough drive to make it reverse. So you have to stay within a given pressure range, which is probably greater than 20 psi. You're probably looking at 35 psi to make this thing work. And if you get up over 50, it's going to be messed up also, because it's not going to return. Now that's a common turf head right there. We'll see lots of those in residential lawns, put in the corners of lawns, because they're going to water a quarter, or maybe down a fence where they'll water a half, and they just sweep back and forth. So that would be a real common way to use that. Well, you know, the industry got to the point where they said, hey, we got to make a cheaper sprinkler so we can get more people to buy sprinklers. And they said, I bet if we make them out of plastic, we can make them cheaper. And yes, you sure can. And so the next step was go to the plastic sprinkler. And they work fine. Again, they're very limited on the pressure range. They're going to be probably even more sensitive than the brass. They work exactly the same technique. And they have a reversing mechanism that works exactly the same. Everything works identically. It's just a different material. It's a little less money. It has some pluses and some minuses. They obviously will break easier, but they cost less. And generally, the plastic won't wear as bad as brass. Brass inherently wears or erodes as water passes through it. Plastic tends to be more resilient and doesn't necessarily wear like brass does. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. And then they had ways to regulate the throw. In turf, lots of times they say, well, if it throws too far, it'll hit the house, it'll hit the sidewalk, it'll water the road. And so we find ways to interfere the stream. And so there are, in this case, there's two ways. We can put a deflector down on the top of the stream so that as the water comes out, it tips the top of this deflector and makes the water fan. Also, it has a diffuser pin that goes right into the center of the stream. So that as you're looking at that nozzle, here's the orifice here. This will be the nozzle. With the water coming straight out, you're actually driving a pin right into the side of that stream like this, and it's threaded. And you can thread it in, and the more you thread it in, the more interference is going to occur. As you drive that pin into the stream, you're going to diffuse the water. It's going to break it up. And so that's what they've done on this nozzle here is you're allowed to drive this pin in, and you can drive it clear in so that it centers in the middle of that if you wanted to, and it's just going to spray water sideways. Or you can just get it so it just tips into it, and it'll break it up a little bit, and you can reduce the range then 5, 10, 15, 20, 25% by how far you drive the pin into the spray. It'll also diffuse more water in closer to the head. So you change the effective distribution pattern of the sprinkler as well. So you have to be aware that it's doing a few things. And we'll get into distribution a few lectures down the road here and talk about that a little bit more. But that's the mechanism that's being used to do it. Okay? So that's what I want you to be aware of.